An officer who was at the Capitol on January 6th is speaking out in George Stephanopoulos' new book, Inside the Situation Room. Officer Mike Stiegler says he never imagined he'd be in a situation where he had to help hold the government together. George Stephanopoulos has more in this ABC News exclusive.
For Mike Stiegler, working in the White House Situation Room was a bucket list dream come true. A duty officer, he served from 2019 to 2021 under both the Trump and Biden administrations.
What exactly is that work on any given day?
Sifting through different intelligence, and we're providing those updates to the president, to the National Security Advisor, the vice president, and all their staff.
You know, you light up when you talk about the Situation Room.
Absolutely.
What stands out from your time in the White House?
The biggest thing that stands out to me is my colleagues.
And at the core of this, apolitical.
Apolitical.
What does that mean to
100%.
you?
That I am there to execute my responsibilities without question and without allowing outside influence to come in. You are to execute, regardless of your own opinions and the opinions of others.
How do you balance serving the president and serving the presidency?
I knew that going into this, right? I had talked to a lot of friends who had served in previous administrations before I took the assignment, and they said, look, it's going to be a little different this time around because there's going to be more pressure to act for the president and not the presidency. So if you go into the mindset that I'm there to serve the presidency, I'm there to serve the executive branch, regardless of what goes on, it puts you in a better mindset.
I want to talk about January 6th. You were the duty officer that day.
Correct.
On the morning of January 6, 2021, Stiegler headed to the White House to start his usual 5 a.m. shift. Later that day, the riot erupted at the Capitol.
At what point did you know that the Capitol had been breached?
As soon as it was called out on the radio. We thought somebody breached the gate or somebody breached a barrier. So when they called out that the Capitol was breached, at first we didn't know what that meant. At the time too, the vice president was there, and one of the responsibilities of the Situation Room is to always maintain communication with the president and the vice president. So those were the initial conversations of, okay, where is he? How can we locate him? You know, how do we maintain that communication link?
You told me people didn't understand how close we came to losing the vice president. What's going through your mind when you are hearing that the vice president's life may be in danger?
We started having the conversations. Okay, if VP's down, what's next? What do we got to do? How do we keep moving? Where's the second in line?
Kind of remarkable, and you know what you're describing there is that you started to implement and go through the checklist of
the Situation Room did, yeah.
The Situation Room,
correct,
of what is called the continuity of government procedures. Describe what those are.
Those are originally instituted for if there's an attack on the U.S. government, how does the government, especially the executive branch, keep going? So that means line of succession. That means how do we move to different locations, and how do we keep the government going?
During a riot of our own people.
Yeah.
Inspired by the man sitting upstairs.
Correct. But at the time, that's not even in the forefront of our mind. It doesn't matter how we got here. We're here. How do we execute? How do we move forward?
Did the president ever call down to the Situation Room that day?
Not to my knowledge.
Not once?
No, sir.
Didn't ask what was going on?
Not to my knowledge.
Didn't ask how the vice president's doing?
Not to my knowledge.
Some people even question today, elected officials, whether the vice president was really in danger. You see a lot of revisionist history going on about January 6th. As someone who was inside the room that day, what's your reaction?
It's important to me that we don't forget that it did come that close. And that we did have discussions. If we lose the VP, if the 25th is invoked, we started running through all of these game plans because it was getting close.
25th Amendment.
Correct.
How did you all talk about it afterwards?
There's some of us that won't talk about it. There's a handful of us that we still talk, and every January 6th we get together and we have a toast. We go to the Lincoln Memorial and we just have that toast, and we don't really say anything.
What is it a toast to? Surviving? Getting through it?
The day after, so January 7th, I was back at it, back at 5 a.m. And a frequent visitor of the Situation Room under the Trump administration was Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, the Vice President's National Security Advisor. He would come by and just get just a general feel of how the day is starting. And at the end, I turn and look at him, I go, "Sir, how are you doing today?" And he takes a deep breath, and he taps the table twice, and he looks at me and goes, "The Republic still stands." But I think that that's what it's a toast to. It's the Republic still stands.
George Stephanopoulos, thank you. George's new book, The Situation Room, The Inside Story of Presidents in Crisis, is available today wherever books are sold.